Hello, my loves, and here we are. We are going to talk about letting go and attachment right now. And this all came about because of an experience with myself. And if you don't already know me, my name is Ariel Zadok, and I help women in film navigate the ups and downs of the industry using accountability, personal wellness, business strategy, and creative development and consultation. So, what happened to me is that some of you may know that I'm going through a rebrand, and that means all sorts of nice, pretty things like photos. And so I went and got my hair cut a week ago. And when she showed me how much she was going to cut off, it was probably about like 2 inches. And in the end, it was more like 5. Now, if you know me, which a lot of you do, you'll know that I usually have really, really, really long hair. And this hair, I'm going to back up for you. For most people, is probably long. For me, it's not. And it didn't really hit me until I had a test shoot and I saw the pictures and I was like, holy crap, that doesn't look like me. And I had a freak out. Not a total freak out, but I definitely cried. I cried for a while. And I think anyone who's had a bad haircut can relate. Not that this is a bad one because it's a good haircut, but herein lies the problem. And here is where the attachment starts to play in and the letting go starts to play in. Because I'm used to seeing myself with very long hair and I am getting ready to do a branding shoot that I hope not to reshoot again for a long time, it struck me when I saw the image, holy crap, that doesn't look like me. This doesn't look like the idea of me. This doesn't look like the identity that I'm used to having. And so, of course, as I'm bawling my face off, I'm like, okay, I know this has to do with attachment, this has to do with letting go, and this has to do with bullshit. But here's the thing. Attachment, non-attachment, all these things, they don't make sense. They're not logical. Our brains don't work in a way, or our emotions don't work in a way that they're always logical. So when we're coming up against these things, it's not logic that's playing into it. Of course, logically, I'm like, whatever, my hair is not me. But the other side of me, the attached side of me, is like, oh my God, my hair is gone. What the F? Like, this doesn't look like me. And that's not who I want to be putting out in the world. Logically, does it matter? No, my hair is great. It's still long. It still looks good. Emotionally, did it cost me? Yeah, it did cost me because I was sitting in the car and I cried. And I don't want to take anything away from crying or allowing yourself to feel the emotions, because I think that that's really important too. I think that we need to sometimes just let ourselves have the release. That doesn't mean to have a freak out in the way that you are causing harm to others or causing harm to self. But I think having the emotional release of a good cry is actually a really, really good thing. So that's how it showed up for me in this one instance. But attachment is sometimes obvious, like a haircut or hoarding, for example. That is definitely a mental disorder, but that is also an example of attachment. Those are obvious. The not so obvious, identity, jobs, expectations, relationships, ideas, beliefs, stuff, all of these things. And they show up in different ways. So let's take the example of when you're spiraling, because we all spiral, right? When you maybe have a break. A lot of us are freelancers, so we have long breaks, and sometimes it can spiral you out of control. And here you have this idea that everyone else is working. And sometimes, yeah, there are a lot of people around you working, but in your mind, you're spiraling down. You're going down this path of attachment to the idea that you have to work instead of embracing the fact that you work in an industry where you can have 2 weeks off to be with your family, to go on holiday, to clean your house, to reorganize your life, to do these things that other people cannot do. So we're attached to the ideas that you need to be working all the time in order to be of value, that you need to be working all the time in order to do your job. How are you a director if you're not directing? Well, you're still a director. You're just having a little break, and that's totally cool. And the higher up we go in our positions, generally the less time we're going to be working. Think about when you started as a PA. You were working all the time. You weren't making good money, but you were busy. And as you grew to coordinator, to production manager, to producer, your days got less and less and less. It doesn't mean that you needed to spiral, but in many cases, we were so attached to the idea of working all the time, and a lot of times the identity of being someone who works all the time, that when you take that away, all of a sudden, the signs are showing up. You're feeling anxious, you're spiraling, maybe your physical, you're having these physical reactions to other people working, you're getting angry. All of these things show up in these secret little ways. Think about the identity of going from a mother to, a woman to a mother. I see this in so many clients that, especially, maybe not in the beginning because you're like all in the mother thing, and I'm not a mother, so I haven't had the experience, but I've worked with a lot of clients who have, and you're not thinking about it so much then, but it creeps up on you. In year 1, in year 2, in year 3, in year 15, in year 18, when they leave, who have you become? You're attached to the identity of the woman that you were before, but now you have this new identity as a mother. And what does that bring up? What kind of anxiety does that bring up? What kind of changes, what kind of spirals, what kind of emotions are those bringing up? And is it because you're attached to the idea of being a woman without a child? Or maybe when your child goes to college, you're attached to the idea of being a mother. And that means that your kid is around all the time. And if your kid isn't here, are you still a mom? Do you see how these things kind of start to creep up inside of us? And they really are subtle. They're not obvious. I mean, think about the last time you bid on a job and you knew that it was between your production company and another production company, and you haven't heard back from the client yet, and you're thinking and you're getting anxious and you haven't heard back and you're making up stories and all of these things. You're attached to the outcome. And yes, absolutely, we care about what's going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't put the work in there in the first place. But once we do our part, once we show up, once we do everything that is in our power to succeed, we have to let go. Because otherwise, you go down the spiral. You make up stories. You create things that aren't real, which causes anxiety. It gives you an actual cost. And it's a negative cost. It's not a good cost. This is something that's going to cause you pain. In yoga, there are 8 sutras. There are 8 limbs. And one of them is non-attachment. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. And there's a story of a very old yogi that my teacher likes to tell. And I've heard this many times. So let's see if I can actually say it in the right way. So he's a very old yogi. This is like back in, 10,000 BC or whatever, very, very, very long time ago. And so he has a young son, he's a teenager, he's strong, all of these things. And so the son decides he wants to learn how to ride a horse. The neighbor comes over and he says, that's great, he's going to ride a horse. He's going to be able to do so much more and go further. The yogi says, maybe. Next thing you know, the son falls off the horse, he breaks his leg, he can no longer help on the farm. Neighbor comes over. Oh my God, your son, he broke his leg. What are you going to do? You have no help. This is terrible, terrible news. And the yogi says again, maybe. Next thing you know, the army comes to town. They're looking for young soldiers just like his son. They're recruiting everyone. The neighbor says, oh, so good that he broke his leg, eh? I mean, he can't go to the army. What a blessing. The yogi says, maybe. While the son is recovering, he decides to take up reading, and he decides that, I don't think the farm is for me. I want to be a scholar. This is really what I feel called to do. Again, the neighbor comes over and he says, oh, what are you going to do? Your son, he's going to go and learn all these things, and he doesn't want to be a farm. Who's going to run your farm? Who's going to run your business? Again, the yogi just says, maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. And so through this story, because you can keep going on and on and on and on and on. And through this story, you can see how the yogi doesn't have attachment. He's not attached to the outcome of situation. He just knows that it exists. He's showing up. He's doing what he has to do. He's taking care of his son. He's taking care of his farm. He's nurturing his son who wants to go and learn. He's doing what he needs to do to continue to show up and serve whatever it is in front of him, but he's not attached to the outcome. He's not worried about what every little thing means. And that's really what it is to be not attached, you know? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not upset that my hair is still short. It still sucks, all right? It's a great haircut. It's beautiful, all of that stuff. But still, you know, there's still that little part of me that's like, oh, you know, I really wish it was longer. But what am I going to do? Nothing. What is it costing me to care? So that's what you have to look at. You have to look at, what are you holding on to? Is it a relationship maybe? Is it an identity? Is it a job you didn't get? Maybe it's some stuff. Maybe it's this like one thing that you've been carrying around for you for like 20 years, and it doesn't actually mean anything to you anymore, but like you've been hanging on to it for so long. What is it costing you? So what is it that you're hanging on to, and what is it costing you? Another way to look at this is to look at where you are starting to feel anxiety in your life. Where are you feeling resistance? Where are your expectations consistently being let down? You know, like where are, maybe in relationships, are you in a place where you're consistently let down by your partner? Well, maybe take a look at that. Maybe it's because you're actually putting an expectation, an attachment, onto something. Maybe you are attached to the outcome of what your partner is going to do, but you're not actually explaining that to them. And so they don't know the outcome that you're expecting, and they'll never reach that expectation because that's just not how humans work. That's not how the world works. So take a look at where you're feeling anxiety, where you're feeling resistance, where you may be holding on to something, and look at what that's costing you. Get into the nitty-gritty details. Is it making you sick? Maybe. These things happen. They definitely can make you sick. Is it making you, in the example of a partner, is it making you more agitated when you're with your partner? Are you more resistant to anything he or she is telling you or bringing to the table? Are you coming at it with more of an attitude? Are you telling yourself stories so that your perception of a situation is changing? Are you emotionally on a roller coaster? Start to look at the cost of what this attachment is to you. And that's where we can start to reframe things and start to understand and let our logical mind come in, because it does take your logical mind to kind of talk to your emotional mind and say, hey, babe, let's scale it back. Let's really just look at what's going on here. And that's kind of how you have to talk to yourself sometimes. You have to be kind. You have to be open the same way that you would talk to your very best friend. You wouldn't talk to your best friend with a harsh attitude. Maybe you would, but that's a whole other relationships conversation. But you would come at it with love and understanding. And so when you're exploring these things, when you're looking at the cost, when you're looking at what it is that you're holding on to, how can you be kind to yourself? What are some of the mantras, the words, the phrases that you can tell yourself? Maybe you pitched a job and you haven't heard back yet. And you know that it's going to take the agency a little bit to get back to you, but you know, you put it out there and you're just spiraling and you're thinking about it and you're wondering, oh my gosh, is this director going to get it? Is he going to get it because he's a dude? Like, these are all very, very real things. Those are the moments that you want to notice in your head, or maybe notice in your body. If your blood is kind of pumping and you're getting red in the face. I know I'll get red in the face sometimes when I'm spiraling or thinking about these things. Notice those costs, notice those things coming up, and that's your opportunity to look at them and maybe say, you know, I did a really good job on that. And sometimes that's just not the right fit, and maybe I'm not the right fit for them, and that's totally cool. But you know what? I did a damn good job on that pitch, and I'm really proud of that treatment. And that's what you got to say. You have to combat the emotional things, irrational things that are going on with love, with kindness, and with tools. And the tools are awareness and reframing and mantra. So those are 3 things you can do. So now that you've watched this video, what I want you to do is, again, first take a look at the things that you're holding on to, whether it's physical stuff, an identity, a situation. Look around. Just notice. Don't judge it. Don't be hard on yourself. This is the human condition. That's why the yogis were talking about this 10,000 years ago. This is just the human condition. So don't judge yourself. Just take a look at the things that you're holding on to. Choose one thing and then go down and look at the cost. Be as detailed as possible. Look at the emotions attached, look at the attitudes, look at any physical things that are going on for you. Look at the cost, write it down so you can see in your logical mind and help your emotional mind process everything and see, oh, I'm holding on to this thing and it's costing me this. So I need to stop that. I need to put a block in my thought patterns. I need to change my neurology. And every time you block that thought pattern, you're changing your neurology. You're actually changing the wrinkles in your brain. So step 1, take a look around. Step 2, identify the cost. And step 3, start to implement stopping yourself in those thoughts. Notice what's going on and maybe come up with a mantra for yourself. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. Sometimes when you do the exact opposite, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit and you just can't buy it. So maybe it's, I'm working towards XYZ. I'm working on this. I'm working in the direction of this. It doesn't have to be the full opposite. It's got to be what's going to work for you in the moment. So I love you. Good luck. This is a journey. It is one step at a time. Non-attachment is a huge thing, and you're going to be working on this forever. Let's be honest. We work on everything forever. Nothing is not a moving target. I mean, everything is a moving target. Balance is a moving target. So go with it, love yourself, and enjoy the ride. Have an awesome day and a fantastic weekend. Mwah.